Brother Bobby Scott, because we're discussing things tonight, and you're not going to discuss anything until you know what you're discussing. And you're not going to vote on anything tonight. You're going to have that on Sunday morning. But this is going to be a time for you to ask any questions you want and to, hear some information as well, because the motion will be spoken to and you'll be informed a little bit. If you do ever have a question, once we get to that point, if you just step out and come up to the microphone right here so that everybody can hear your question. It's kind of hard to hear in this room, so if you stay seated and speak where you are, most people aren't going to be able to hear that. So come up to the microphone, ask your question, and then you'll be able to move on. I do want to correct something that was given to you Sunday before we get started. Let me look and find it real quick. Old man needs his glasses. Hold on a second. Make sure I got the right page here and the right question. This page right here in the information we gave. And by the way, did anybody not get one of these that wants one? There were some more in the back. Hold on a second. Phil, brother, there's a box under a table in the back there. Some of them might have been given out. There's a box under the table on this side in the back in the foyer. And we've got some extra ones of these. There you go. Hey, there's Desiree. We just prayed for you, girl. We want you to have a good surgery next week. All right, well, as soon as Phil starts coming down and giving these out, we'll be good to go. And he's on the way with them right now. But on this page, there was actually a question that was asked that had the wrong answer to it. There was supposed to be two questions, and the question and the answer don't go together. So the question was, why are we keeping the old worship center? And that's something I believe I answered in all three services, which is it's going to save you money, and it's also going to allow for continued use. You can keep using this place for Wednesday night service, funerals, weddings, that sort of stuff. So I think I told you that. But the answer that you've got there went with another question that wasn't given. And that question was, let me make sure I got that. I've got it written down here. So I got too many papers up here. Here it is. Where will we worship during construction? And the answer that you've got there is the answer to that. It's where we're going to worship. That the existing sanctuary, which you're in right now, will continue to serve as a worship location on Sunday and Wednesday, and the contemporary service will continue to meet in the Family Life Center. So if that looked really strange to you and goofy, that's why. It's because it was supposed to be two questions, and it ended up being one that got mashed together. All right.
Preacher, is it possible to bring a microphone around because some people can't get up and walk?
I think it is, if we can find somebody to do that. We got some volunteers right here. John's already up and coming. John Estep has volunteered. He stood up, so he's going to tote the microphone. That microphone right there? No, that's one he's going to come get and use, I think. Yeah, if you'll just take that one out. So we're not ready for it yet, so you might as well just have a seat right now. And where's Gene? All right, Gene, I'm going to recognize you and ask you to come up and call our church into conference.
Good evening, church. See you all tonight. All right, let's talk. Yes, I should know that, right? Okay. At this time, I call the church into conference. And now I will recognize Mr. Bobby Scott, Chairman of the Master Planning Committee. Pardon? Okay, yes. A motion to call this church into conference. Dave Hubbard first. Jeff Smith second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, very good. Thank you. At this time, I recognize Mr. Bobby Scott, Chairman of the Master Planning Committee, to present a motion.
Good evening, everyone. It's a blessed day to be here. This committee has been working on this project for about 2.5 years now. We spent $618,000 to this point. I think it's going to be a blessing if we can make this happen. It's not going to be an easy task, but I think the Lord's willing we can do it if everybody works together. The motion I want to present to the church tonight is that First Baptist Church, North Myrtle Beach, contractor Costco into contract to build a new sanctuary. The next motion I want to agree on for the church is we're looking at 9728. That's $9,728 for the project. We have added a contingency of $100,000. That's for if we have any change orders. And I hope and pray we do not have no change orders on this project. And that number that I just gave you, that's the worst case scenario number. It could be a lot better, but it can't go up because we got a guaranteed price from Costco on that. So that's a blessing considering the way the economy is today. The next motion I've got is for the funds come from the capital gain building funds and then from the building expense. Right now, we've got probably about 4.5 in the bank. And I said all along, we need to have half of it. And we're pretty doggone close to that. Or I wouldn't even vote for it at all. But with that said, I think this can happen. I really do, in my heart. So I make a motion that someone seconds what I've just said. Shirley Lockerman. Shirley, I'm sorry. Excuse me. At least I didn't call you Peggy. I used to call her Peggy a lot. With that said, I'm going to call Costco, our contractor up here, and let him answer the questions and answers of anyone. If he can't answer them, I'll get back up here and answer them. God bless each one of you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, church family. My name is Tim Songster, and I'm the president and owner of Costco and Associates. And on behalf of Costco and Associates, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to work with your ministry. It's been very enjoyable to be with your leadership, with your teams, and be a part of what God's doing here. I want to share some things with you before we get into the questions and answers, just so that you can understand a little bit about the process that we've gone through and have some clarity on the project, and then I'll answer any questions that you have from there. I want to start out by saying, I pray that this will be much like what happened when they rebuilt the wall around Jerusalem. If you remember, after 70 years of Babylonian captivity, Nehemiah led God's people back to rebuild the wall around Jerusalem, and later Zerubbabel to rebuild the temple. And when they were building the wall, they came up against a lot of things. The enemy reared its head in many different ways. But what we saw every step of the way, number one, that Nehemiah started out with prayer and fasting. And then we saw that when he got there, he examined the situation, and he called people and led people to stay focused on what God was doing in their ministry and not to be distracted, excuse my language, but by a stupid building program. To stay focused on what God was doing. And here's the best part, is at the end, when it was completed, Scripture tells us that the enemy recognized that this work had been accomplished by God. And they all knew that God did it. And so that's my prayer at the end of this, that we all give God glory for what he's done. And it will be an incredible time of celebration to watch what he's going to continue to do here at First Baptist.
Just as a point of order, a motion was made and then a second was made, but we didn't ask for a vote. I believe this is not protocol. We're going to vote Sunday, but in fact, we could speak to this. We don't need to do that. Okay.
Hello? Oh. Hello. I just want to make sure we do things according to parliamentary procedure. I'm not an expert on parliamentary procedure, but it seems like that we called the church into conference without prior notification of that, because as I see it, the notification in the bulletin talked about a question and answer session, and that the church will be called into conference on Sunday to do that. So I don't know if you can take a motion out of conference, or if this was called into conference in violation of a notification requirement.
What we're doing is, it'll be a time of Q&A, but a time of information, so that we could get to that point. And that was mentioned on Sunday.
Yes, but we called it into conference, and you're going to take a motion in that conference, but I don't think that's the parliamentary proper way to do that. I think you have to wait until the notification has been given for the conference, which it has been done for Sunday. I just want to be sure we're following parliamentary procedure and doing things right.
I don't know how else to speak to it, because I believe that we had done that on Sunday. Pastor Greg gave all this information. I'm sorry. This was done, all this was talked about, Pastor Greg presented to us on Sunday about what would transpire tonight, that we'd be given more information, and that we would have an opportunity to bring questions to the floor to be answered by either the committee and or Costco, the representative from Costco. And so,
That does not require conference. That's not conference. It's question and answer.
okay. Well, I can tell you this, clearly I'm not an expert in Robert's Rules of Order, but if that is what we need to do, then to not be in conference, so to speak, but tonight is about Q&A, information given, a video presented for those that weren't there on Sunday. We can go that route. We just want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to agree that we'd have this meeting tonight. So that's why I went forward with that motion. Okay, so I rescind calling us into conference if that's what we need to do, just for the sake of being able to go on with tonight's meeting, because it's very informative, and we just want to get on with the order of business so that you all can be informed, and if you have any questions, they can be answered tonight. All right? Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm not going to get to the questions just yet. I would like to share a few things just so that there's clarity on what has happened over these last couple of years. And I think it'll put you at ease to know that there's been a lot of time put in and thought put into it. Costco, as you probably know, but just to remind you, we've been around since 1969, and all we do is design and build churches. This is our passion. It's our business. It's our ministry. We've built over 1,000 churches all over the United States. We currently have about 45 churches in progress right now. And so we love dealing with churches. This is what we do. We eat, sleep, and drink churches. And so one of the things that we have been doing is spending time over the last couple of years with your leadership. I want to explain the process. We didn't just come in here and say, here's a worship center we have built, make it work for your ministry. What we did is we came in and we spent time, first of all, worshiping with you on a Sunday. We were secret guests. I don't know if you remember that. We experienced what was going on Sunday morning, the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't have anything on me that I know is causing that, but I'll stand back a little bit. So what we did is we came in and did first impressions. We looked at everything from the street to the seat and everything in between. First impressions on worship, first impressions on the welcome, on the ministry, on the word, every aspect of worship that goes on Sunday morning. And we did that as an intention to one thing for us to do is understand your ministry. God has uniquely equipped this church to reach this community. And yeah, I'm a Southern Baptist. I go to Woodlawn Baptist Church. I've worked with a lot of Baptist churches. We understand church, but you're unique. And so we want to understand how God has uniquely equipped you and the unique situation you have here. And so in that, we then spent time exploring various ministries, the needs in the various ministries, understanding what tool you needed to help your ministry maximize its performance. And so that was the whole goal, was to try to get the right tool. And in that design process, we went through several iterations of worship center solutions, solutions to connect to the existing building, to maximize and right-size the campus so that you would not be out of balance in any one area, but be able to continue to grow and achieve balance in ministry. And so in that is where we came up with design, which I think we're going to look at a video of that again. But there were a lot of great design decisions by your team. And the idea was, what tool can take us into the future, the next 40 or 50 years, and still be relevant 50 years from now, and using the latest things that we learn in ministry that are optimizing worship centers, making them the most effective for ministries, and work together as a team to make sure it matches your personality as well. And so we did a lot of that. And I worked with, of course, with Pastor Greg, and your leadership team was outstanding. I just got to say, Bobby Scott took the lead. He's been fighting for you every step of the way. Matter of fact, even in the last couple weeks, calling up some of these subcontractors saying, you know, this is a church, you can get us a better price. And been working the numbers. He's working the numbers down hard, and he's worked on me very, very hard along the way, believe me. And at the same time, you've got great people like Steve Scarborough, Rose, Frank, Russ, Linda, all these great people that love this ministry, love you people, and want nothing but the best for you. And so they had a lot of input, obviously, along the choices made in the design, and some of the choices, even the simplest of things, like flooring. When you think about this right here is rolled flooring, broadloom flooring, as we call it. And today, it's very difficult to have this flooring get cleaned a lot of times and still look good if you have a spill or you have something happening on the flooring. So the team chose to go with carpet tile, which gives you a lot of options in both flexibility in the design, but also if you have a problem, you got this 2x2 piece of carpet tile you can pull up and replace, and everything's good to go again. So they made a lot of smart design decisions along the way, including an audio-video lighting package that would give you a great worship experience. We have a guy on our team that worked with one of the leading worship design, audio-video lighting design companies in the country, specializes in churches, called All Pro Sound, and he works for us now. And he worked with your Mark and his team to come up with what is the best solution to give you the state-of-the-art audio, video, and lighting experience that will work both for traditional worship and contemporary worship, to have acoustical treatment inside the facility, the right speaker pointing, and all these things for acoustics, so that every one of you can hear very easily and enjoy your worship experience. Right down to the seating, to have quality, comfortable seating with great lines of sight, so you're looking over shoulders rather than over backs and trying to look through heads, with the right lines of sight on the platform, the right size of platform to handle all the equipment. Your team fought to increase the size of the platform even, to make sure that everything fit and then some for future use, which got us the right choir size loft and the right places for equipment on the platform. Every aspect of this, including additional spaces for hospitality ministries, for guest speakers, for you to be able to enjoy a great connection with a lobby that is outside the worship center, that has a large place for seating areas and connection, and nice new, clean, vibrant restrooms right outside the worship center doors, and all kinds of these things that were really important, along with 3 nice adult classrooms right next to the worship center that would hold 44 people, up to a maximum of 44 people in each classroom. So sound was important in transfer from classroom to classroom, and also from room to room and other spaces. All this was thought through, even to have sound locks from the common area, the lobby area, so that sound wouldn't transfer when people were out there waiting for the next service or having fellowship out in the common area, and people are having worship inside the worship center, that sound transfer wouldn't happen. There were double doors that prevented that and minimized the impact of that. So All this has been thought through, and you can imagine Mr. Bobby fighting for the right cooling in the building, for HVAC, and making sure that all that is correct, so that you can take a room that's empty and fill it with 600 people and maintain temperature and handle it properly, give you the best value for your dollar. So all these things were very seriously taken. I want you to know that even down to the bidding in the project, just so you know, I wrote this down here so I wouldn't forget, there's over 257 bidders on the project from all over the Southeast. And there were so many bidders in every category, which we sat down with your leadership team and went through the bids to understand who they were and what were the best values and why. And you've got some incredible people in this community that love this church, that were able to give good pricing on things. And for example, you have a local roofer that loves this church, has worked on this church, and it was phenomenal what he was able to do. Just as one example, from other roofing prices, many other roofing prices, he was over $100,000 less, which just tells you what he thinks about the impact of you in this community and what he wanted to do to help you. So a lot of great people interested in helping in this project. And one of the things that I point out to every church I was talking with Pastor about earlier is what I'm excited about is, yes, what God's going to do in the church in the future, but I'm also excited about this ministry opportunity we have as a family. There's going to be hundreds of workers that will come on this job site that would not have any other reason, and they may never any other way visit First Baptist Church. And we don't want to miss that opportunity to minister to them. We want to love on them. We want to share the gospel with them. We want to make sure they have a chance to know what we know and to have that joy in their life. So we're going to work together as a team to do just that and make sure that the workers are loved on. We're going to expect excellence out of them, but we're not going to miss that opportunity. So just want you to know a little bit about that. I'm sure everybody's curious about the timeline. And a lot of this information was in here, but just to be clear, from the day that we begin work on site, when is that day? I don't know. If you vote to go forward, which I pray that you do, then we will get on with it to try to get started as soon as we can. But it's about approximately 14 months after we start work. And you say, how come you don't know exactly what day? Well, because there's a little thing called weather that messes that up, and some supply chain issues that we will work through, and we'll work on our critical paths and our schedule to get it done as quickly as we can. But I would say approximately 14 months is a great guess at this point. So with that, are we going to show the video first, Pastor, or do you want to do that? Let's show the video, and then I'll come back up here, and we'll answer any questions that you have. and everybody. Isn't that a beautiful building? I love that night shot. That really says it all with all the lighting and lighting up that steeple at night. It's going to be wonderful. So I'll take any questions that you might have and see if we can answer them.
Come downstairs. For everybody benefit, please come to the microphone.
Okay, my question is, I wasn't here on Sunday. By the way, I'm Crystal. So I don't know if anything was asked on Sunday. The design was beautiful. However, I just wondered, why is the baptistry in the lobby? That's just my question, because as a mother and a grandmother, I just feel like I don't want to watch somebody on a video, so maybe I have several questions. Could that design be changed? If possible, what's the process of that? But did the church vote on that being done before? I've only been a member for over a year. So did that get voted on before I became a member? It did.
Well, to answer your first question, the baptistry is in the common area connected to the restrooms, but you could have several, I would say 150 people outside of that baptistry, right outside of it, standing there in front of it when you baptize. It is also going to be cameraed into the projection screens in a worship center. That ability is there. But one of the things that a lot of churches, and I've done this in, I can't tell you how many, at least 100 churches, and I will tell you that everyone that has done it has loved it. I've never had any one of them complain about it. It was a decision that was made in the design process. As we went through it, we considered all options for the baptistry, and there are many various options. You can do it in a platform, you can do it on the side of the platform, you can do it in the back of the platform, you can do it in a common area. There's lots of places to do it. You can do a portable baptistry. If you want to do a baptistry in the worship center and you're dead set, you want to bring one, you can always bring a portable into the worship center. And that's done very often as well. So you can have both options. Yes, it has been considered, and yes, you can be right there. If your grandchild's being baptized, you can stand right in front of them getting baptized and be right there with them.
Okay. Well, I personally, that's just my opinion. I don't agree with that design, but I'm one person.
Any other questions? In the back.
Yeah, Tim, can everybody hear me? 'Cause I can't hear myself here.
Mic closer to your mouth, Michael.
Right here? Am I good? Okay. I have a few, Tim. The first one is, how long will it take from start to completion of the project, do you estimate?
14 months.
14? Okay. And with the 9.7 price that we're talking about, does that include contingency and such, or do we need to add more to that for things like, for example, equipping the building for sound and things like that?
Okay, we have everything. It's a turnkey price. We have specified in the contract allowable items for allowances for many, many things. For example, the audio, video, and lighting has gone through many, many iterations of discussions with your worship team to get the right equipment, right down to every piece of equipment that your existing equipment they're using to new equipment. So everything is spelled out in detail is what's going to be on. I can tell you the exact number. It's $451,268 in audio, video, and lighting equipment going in the worship center. So yes, we have allowances for furnishings. We have allowances for cafe equipment. We have all this built into the design. So you shouldn't have to add anything when you come into we've got signage allowed for. We've got TVs in the lobby area. we have made a recommendation, and that's what was discussed earlier, to put a $100,000 contingency on top of our number for an unforeseen site condition that could come up, a fire marshal change, even though they've already approved the plans. We have everything permittable. We haven't pulled the permit yet. Of course, we won't pull the permit till you decide to go forward. But once we pull that permit, you can build a building, and at the end of the project, they can make you change some things, even though they've agreed to it. And so we want to make sure that we've allotted for anything that could come up in the process of building. But the building price, this building with the things we put in it, is guaranteed. It's just that you can't control when you go to put in maybe a tie into a sewer system and it's not there, or they're going to make you do something different than what they have on the plan that says this is where it's supposed to be. I can't control those things. And so that's why we put a contingency and suggested a contingency of $100,000 on top of it.
Okay. Answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Oh, 1 second. They're getting somebody in the back first.
I'll be through in a minute. I have a couple issues. The nursery, for one. I haven't heard anything about a nursery. We have been in the CDC's nursery for a long time. When we were going to build the sanctuary, a new one, some years ago, I was promised, sort of, that we would have our own nursery. And I haven't heard anything about us having our own nursery. I haven't seen anything on there. And I'd like to see us have our own nursery instead of being in the CDC's nursery. And also, I'm also have a problem with the baptismal being put aside, because I feel like that, is an important thing, and to me it makes it look like it's not as important. And so I want to know about the nursery, though. What we're going to do, are we going to have our own? And if we do, I want to know what's going in it and how it looks. We used to have our own. We had our own. It was right down the hall here. And we did what we wanted to in that nursery. So what are we going to do with the nursery?
We are connecting this building internally without going outside to the nursery area, but we are not doing any work inside the nursery in this phase.
Is it going to be a different nursery? Is it going to be away from the CDC's that we have our own?
No.
Why not? Why can't we have our own nursery? And why wasn't it in the plans? I mean, that's what we were going to do with the other plans.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. I mean, we did what the team decided to do, and it's not in this phase of the project. It is in the master plan, looked at children's areas and preschool, but it's not in this phase of building.
Well, the nursery's just as important as, the nursery's very important. And
I agree.
Yeah. And people don't think about the nursery.
Susie,
Yes.
the CDC does run that nursery, but that nursery is in the Sunday school wing as well. And so it wouldn't make any more sense than to build another room just to provide a nursery, when this one is beautifully furnished already, is already plugged into the sound of our sanctuary, so everyone knows that is serving in that sanctuary or in the nursery can hear the message as it's being preached. So it's just spending more money that we don't need for a nursery that's already in existence. It's not the CDC's, it's the church's nursery.
No, it's really in the CDC, and when I was in there, we had to go along with what the CDC wanted. We had to use their stuff, we had to use their plan, and it went along that way. You may be fine now, but I know years ago it wasn't.
Again, the nursery is being operated in accordance with the way that DHEC and others would want it to run, so that it's safe for those that are a part of that nursery. Okay?
Yeah, I guess.
Any other questions? She's suggesting that it could be a long walk. I understand what you're saying, but as Tim alluded to, you'll be undercover the whole time. It might be a bit of a walk to get to the nursery, but I don't know that it's that much of an inconvenience. I've been in other churches where nurseries are even further away from the sanctuary than ours will be.
We actually measured the distance. The distance from to the seating here to the seating there is no different. And it's internal and it's accessible.
Okay. Shirley, do you have a question? Come up, Dan.
Just curious as to the fact that this building will remain. How did we get around the parking issue? That was the initial thought, that this building needed to be destroyed to give us adequate parking.
We are adding 42 parking spaces out in the front. And in the next phase, if that goes forward at some point, this will come down. There will be more parking here, additional parking. But you will have adequate parking.
The city of North Myrtle Beach, because they need access onto our property, has given us the opportunity to use a lot that will be available for us. And if we need to transport people by way of golf carts or whatever, we'll be doing that. I'm sorry. The city of North Myrtle Beach needs to use part of our property for a project that they're working on. So quid pro quo, we'll be able to use a property there not too far off our campus where additional parking will be made available, and if needs be, transportation will be provided by golf course or some other means. But we will have enough to take care of the needs right now. But for now, at this juncture, this current building is staying as it is. Okay.
Gene, are there any plans for cameras, security cameras?
Yes, and I'm sure that given the size and scope of our campus continuing to grow, there'll be even more cameras. We have a wonderful security team, and we'll need more members as our campus grows, but I can assure you, while you're here worshiping, you have a wonderful security team making sure that you're here for the purpose of worshiping and not having to worry about intruders coming into our facility. Good question, thank you. Plenty of cameras, more to come. Fred?
Yes, earlier you mentioned about decisions made by the committee, I suppose the committee or whoever was involved in making the decisions about all this. What I would like for you to do is to elaborate on and discuss for a bit the process used in determining the style of the church, and I would also include the baptismal in this, the contemporary design versus a classical reverential design of a church. And what I'd like for you to, I'd like to know the decision process that you went through to come to that conclusion for both the church and the baptismal. I'd like for you to specifically address how much, to what extent, cultural trends and current building trends factored into that, how much cost factored into that, and how much and to what extent input from the congregation impacted that.
Sure. Well, I will say that it was an iteration process of options on elevations. You're specifically talking about the exterior elevations, I imagine. So what we did is we took what was existing in the existing building exterior elevations and tried to complement them and bring them together. For example, there's a lot of elements in this building that marry to the Family Life Center and the arches that were built into the side of the Family Life Center to bring them into this new building and flow into the connection of this existing building. A lot of the architecture is matched to both buildings with brick roll-locks, brick treatments, and other things to match the CMU, to match this existing building and some of the other buildings. So we're trying to marry 3 different buildings, really, of elevations into one. And then also there was a lot of discussion about trying to bring it to a community that is on the beach and use some elements that make it feel a little more in this setting of what elements are being built around in community features and other buildings in the area. And so we looked at the board and batten to add that to the brick and the masonry and the ephes and the block CMU that was already spelled out in the existing buildings. And so we looked at several iterations of that, and arrived at the iteration that you see. Cost was taken into concern because one of the things that the committee talked about, and is very true, is the higher you go with brick, the stiffer your building has to be, i.e. more steel. You have to meet an L over 240 instead of an L over 360 instead of an L over 240. So it has to be stiffer. So with making these breaks with the EFIS, the exterior finishing insulating system, it's a synthetic stucco, and by using the board and batten, it saved on steel costs, it saved on exterior elevation costs around the building. And then we looked at some things that would create a good presence all the time with signage. So we went to some of the leading signage companies in the country. Hedrick Signs actually is the one that we landed on, which is a Christian company out of Mississippi, and they specialize in signage, and that's where we got the church's logo and put that signage on the side of the building and married that to the rest of the architecture. So it really was using a lot of symbology in some interest of the existing buildings and pulling into the new building, and arrived at the elevation we came at. So there was several factors. Existing buildings gave us some triggers, the local area, and then of course costs and finishes due to costs. Congregational input, the elevations were there in the master planning before we moved into design development. So when the church moved forward from the master plan to draw the plans for construction, that elevation was there.
Okay.
You saw it before. The congregation had input at that point. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm sure if we put elevations out to a congregation and we had every individual give input, everybody's opinion would be slightly different. But at the same time, you do what's best and try to come up with the best solution that would marry for everybody and give you the best result. But obviously, not everybody's going to agree on every single decision made on any elevation, nor do they on their home, their personal home either. So there's a lot of decisions I'm sure some people won't love, others will love. But I think it turned out nice.
Yeah, Tim said that this is the first phase. So the original plan included connecting the church together as a whole. And I think if we did that, we'd be looking at like $12.5 million in the original costing of both phases, if I heard that number right. So what we're doing, we're just doing away with part of it just to get down to the cost so we can build a building. And I guess I have a problem with that. If God would have wanted us to do this thing and do it right, we would have stayed with the original plan and went ahead with it. You know, if we're looking at a 20-year loan and we're paying $2.5 million interest on that loan, I don't know if we'd ever get back to the second phase or not. You know, and I guess, you know, being in business for a long time, I look at money because I always had to make payroll and always had to cover my cost of running a business. And I know church is not like running a business, but I think it needs to be considered if we're just doing away with part of it to get to where we can build a building. I don't know if that's God's plan or not, if he wants us to look at where we're at as a country and maybe hold off on this thing until we can accumulate some more money to pay down on it so we don't spend it all in enough interest to build the other section. I mean, that's just my feeling.
I'll say this. First of all, I don't agree with you that is the decision that's being made. I think the decision that's being made is phase one has to happen first. You have to have the new worship center and the parking associated with that before you could consider taking on these other phases. You can't do anything here until that's available. So you would build that, you would occupy that, and then you can consider moving on with another phase. But that has to be done first. Both we believe that, the leadership believes that, but also the city believes that. So as we went through the permitting process, they were on the same page with all those things. And so that's really, I think, the primary reason. I'm not speaking for Pastor. I mean, Bobby, if you want to speak to that, I think the primary reason is because you have to do that phase first. And it has to be completed first. But there are many other phases that we looked at in the master planning, yes, to the project.
Yeah, well, a follow-up question. Bobby says we spent $600 and some odd thousand dollars up to this point, and you guys are doing you guys are taking the construction on it. How much more is involved with Costco that we would be paying you guys?
We are design build. I'm the general contractor.
Oh, you're just going to do the building. So so everybody that's contracted out would send you guys in a completed form on the roofing or the buildings and blocks and everything.
I'm a general contractor, yes,
Yep,
sir.
okay, thank you.
Over here, please, Lenny.
My first statement is, as I said from the very start, the baptismal out there beside of a coffee shop is the most sacrilegious thing I have ever seen. I know it's done in other churches, but that does not make it right. Secondly, the math on this whole project just doesn't make any sense. Currently, we have 2 traditional services and 1 contemporary. The 2 traditional services are going to be combined. We average 200 people in each one of those, the 8:30 service and the 11 o'clock service. So that's 400 people right there. We only have 600 seating in this building. We're looking at growth. We will be over our numbers within 3 to 5 years, and we've got a 25-year loan for $9 million. Your building's not even big enough.
Well, to correct you on the number of seating, just to be accurate, there's 631 fixed seats plus another 54 portable chairs will go against the back wall, plus 56 people in the choir. So that's the real number, but I'm not going to change your opinion. That would be wonderful to add another service in 3 to 5 years because you've grown so much.
First off, I would like to thank the committee for all the incredible work that they've been doing. It's obvious. Secondly, if I've missed this, forgive me, but in the design of the new place, considering where we live, are there going to be like hurricane-rated windows in roofs and that type of thing?
That's a great question. Yes, ma'am. There's a code requires that we have debris rated, wind rated, 156 mile an hour gusts rated windows and steel and right up to the steeple. So it meets all the code requirements.
Hey. I see on the drawing that you have the adult classes as a bid alternate that's behind the new worship center. Is that included in the 9.7 at this point?
Yes.
There's some allowance for that?
It's included in the price. The reason it was set as a bid alternate originally was that if it wanted to be pulled out, you'd have that option.
Oh, okay. But it's under...
It is in the price.
The existing roof and the cost for foundation and roofing, that would just be empty space if you didn't put in the rooms?
No, the actual design alternate meant you would not build that part of the building.
Oh,
but it is included.
backside.
It's all included.
Okay. And then you say you've added 64 parking spaces, but based on the new design that I see, there's a lot of spaces that have been deleted. Is that in consideration above and beyond what we did have?
Yes.
Not just that you're now doing this new area as
That's right.
a new parking, but it actually
right.
gives us additional 64 spaces.
That's right. And we kept the road in that comes off of, oh man, I can't believe, 17. That turn that comes in.
Okay. So this is just a mock-up. This isn't a reality because there's not 64 new spaces on this little drawing that I'm looking at.
There is in the whole master plan, or the first phase.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Just as, all right, Deanna?
I know I just heard somebody mention that we would be borrowing $9 million, but we won't. So can somebody explain the money to make people feel a little bit better about that?
As Pastor said this past Sunday, we have almost $4.5 million in the bank, or very close to that. We're also not quite through a middle of the 3-year commitment to our pledge, capital campaign pledge, and we have already almost superseded that part as far as half of the pledges that are going to come in. So with the monies that we already have available, the monies that will be pledged, and at the start of this project, whenever we start this, Lord willing, we already have $5 million in the bank, so to speak. So we do not need to go to a bank right now and borrow money. We have very good credit with those that we've used in the past for credit for the Family Life Center. We've paid that off in record time. Once we got a pastor in here that had a vision and a congregation that was willing to take on that debt and move forward. And now we have this tremendous opportunity. So we have almost half of what we need already to move forward with this program. By the time we exhaust the current funds that we have, more funds, probably $1 million, maybe, possibly, Lord willing, $2 million or more, should the Lord move on people's hearts to give more and above what they're giving now. We cannot put the Lord in a box. If it is God's will, and I personally believe that it is, then let's let God do this. It's about His will. We're the lighthouse for this community. We have a wonderful opportunity to share the gospel, not only to those that are moving to our area, and lots of people, as you know, are moving to our area, and every summer we have tons of visitors coming in here. We need a larger facility. No one wants to come to a church, especially the first timer, and there's nowhere to sit. Now we'll have this opportunity where people will feel, okay, and hopefully they'll come back again. So all great questions, all great concerns. No one's trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, but what we need to be doing, and what I believe most of us are doing, or all of us are, is we're seeking the Lord's face for His will to be accomplished in the life of First Baptist Church. It should not be about whether we have red carpet or chandeliers or, and I know it's a sticky subject, where the baptism pool is. We baptize people in the ocean. People have been baptized in pools. We can baptize wherever we can. So all I'm asking is that you please go to the Lord. If there's still some things that you're a little bit concerned about, seek the Lord's face, okay? A couple more questions, and we'll have to move on. Frank, I will get to you if you still have a question. Barbara?
I think we have to talk about the number of chairs. We are road-locked to a certain extent. We have 3 services today. If, by the Lord's will, we are too big or outgrow that building, the preacher goes back to preaching 3 times a day. Sorry.
And he will. And Barbara, that's a good point. And if the Lord allows us to grow to a point where it requires 4 services, as Tim alluded, we'll just add another service to accommodate those coming. Lord willing, we'll need to do that. It's exciting. The Lord continues to grow our church each week. Let's not put a damper on that. Frank?
Frank. I just have a few general comments. My name is Frank Bullano. I've probably been a member of this church longer than anybody here, probably, and so forth. I've been coming to this church for 77 years. I was baptized in this church when I was 9 years old, so I've been a member for 68 years. So I've got a lot of history of the church. And we've had 2 events in that history which hurt the church pretty bad, I guess you could say. The church has certainly had ups and downs like any church has had. But in 1953, we actually built the sanctuary y'all are standing in right now. A number of the members at that time helped build the church, and so it didn't cost us much money. But we ended up borrowing several $100,000. And the good Lord saw fit to send us Hurricane Hazel in 1954. which put us in a hole. My father was actually the treasurer at that time, and he lost everything he had. His store was completely destroyed. His home was completely destroyed, and he never met his pledge because he didn't have any money. We were broke for sure. We went the next 50 years, I guess you could say, in the church. We added classrooms, we added different things. Over those 50 years, we did borrow very little money. We borrowed money a couple of times, but not very much. Then we got around to the Family Life Center in about 2008 and 2009. We went out and built a Family Life Center. We borrowed a good bit of money. We actually borrowed again at the wrong time because the economy took a downturn at that time. So we owed $2 million. It took us 12 years to pay those $2 million off. We spent more money in interest than the actual amount of the loan was. And that's the concern I have right now, is that the economy does not look good right now. The economy is fixing to take a downturn right now. Somebody up in the real estate business will tell you about that right now. We have an election coming up in November, which is very scary to me. That could certainly affect our economy. Just a number of things. And we talked about the $9.8 million. Tim, that doesn't include everything though, right, Tim? That doesn't include the builder's risk. That doesn't include performance bond. It doesn't include loan costs. Doesn't include lawyer's costs. It doesn't include surveys. It doesn't include inspections. It doesn't include appraisals. None of those stuff are in that price, right?
You are correct with the special inspections cannot be done by us. It has to be done by the church, an independent third party, and we gave you a proposal for that. That's where the $100,000 contingency comes in. You also have builder's risk. I don't know if you got that yet, but we suggested use the builder's risk from your local insurance because it'll probably be cheaper than just buying a one-off builder's risk insurance. And the permit is accounted for. I'm trying to remember what else you said.
Well, I'm talking about loan costs. We got to pay lawyers. We have to have a building appraised. We have to have bank
fees. The survey's
fees.
done.
We have to have inspections. Well, as you know, there's going to have to be as-built inspections as we go along, and we're talking $100,000 probably for everything. But anyway, my concern is just borrowing that large amount of money at this time with the economy is my concern. And that's just the way I feel about the whole thing. If we only have to borrow $3 million, let's say for 15 years, that's a lot of interest right there. If we borrow the $6 million for 15 years or $5.5 million, that's $3 million in interest. That's a lot of money. Roy made a comment just now, which makes a lot of sense to me. I know we want to put this thing on hold, but again, I'm concerned about the election and the economy right now in making the loan payments because, again, we've had twice in our history we had a hard time doing that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Frank. Again, I just want to say this. We already have $5 million in the bank. We're not going to borrow $9 million. And more monies will continue to come in. As Pastor shared with us this past Sunday, if we have to make a $39,000 a month payment, which is on the high side, we will still have $22,000 left over each month, and we have already paid all the other bills. So we're continue to gain more money in the bank to take care of those. We don't need to spend or go to a loan officer at this time because we have the nearly $5 million in the bank now that we can use to start this project. So we're not going to borrow $9 million. Okay?
I have a question. You mentioned that you have a lock-in rate. Hello? Oh, okay. You have a locked-in price. If materials go down with the economy based upon true facts of this grand strand of the sales and everything in real estate going down, are your prices going to go down?
If my prices go down, it will go down, but I've never seen it happen.
Can you write it? Can you?
It's in the contract.
It's in the contract. Okay.
And also, it also is only good for another week.
And why is that?
Because well, I'm sorry, it's not me that's doing it.
Well, I'm just curious.
It's because the suppliers can only hold a number for so long. And at this point, they've been holding it for over 30 days.
And the prices could be less.
You're I wish that were reality. I
know a lot of general contractors and builders I've talked to, and they say that honestly, they even said they don't know anybody that would even guarantee a lock-in rate for $10 million. They are just shocked at how you're capable of doing that. Can you elaborate on that? Or 9 million.
I don't know if I understand.
9.7 million.
I don't understand your question necessarily, except that how can we give a fixed price on a project? Because we were very thorough in the plans to define all specific responsibilities of each subcontractor, and then we spent a lot of time, and your leadership can attest to the time we spent talking with subcontractors and suppliers to get their price correct and make sure they got everything covered, so we could stand before you and say we can build it for this price.
But if prices go down, then...
Any other questions? We're going to move on here. All right, Russ Courtney.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Russ Courtney, and I'm one of the members of this committee. And before I say what I'm going to say, I truly want to see this building built, okay? I really want to see this building built. Most of you don't know this because you weren't here, but 2008 and 2009 were really bad around here, as Frank said. I lost everything I own, okay? So don't tell me that things can't go bad during bad times. And I had to sell 2 houses for less than half of what they were worth. Building costs went down, land costs went down, so please don't tell me that can't happen. Yes, real estate goes up over the long haul, but it goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. The same thing with building supplies. I love you, Tim, and I do want to build this building, but I'm kind of like some of the others. I'd like to wait till after the election and some of this uncertainty, and if interest rates drop 0.5%, would be a pretty good amount of savings. If construction prices do happen to come down, we've saved some more money. And that's all I have to say. But again, I don't think that I don't want this building. I do want to see the building.
No, we are not. And I don't want to belabor this because, well, to speak to what you just said, Russ, just whether Kamala gets in or Trump gets in is not going to determine which way things are going to go as far as our economy. The Lord's in control of all. Well, listen up. I am trying to be apolitical here so as to not step on any toes, but I feel like this. If the Lord wants us to have this building, we will. We have 80 some days before this election occurs, and we don't know how the economy is going to be. And if we lose this opportunity, then when we go back to Costco or some other entity, it may cost us a lot more to do it because we have to bid on it again, and we'll start this whole process again. We'll have to spend more money to go through that whole shenanigans again, will we not? Well, okay.
I'd just like to change the subject slightly. Paul and I have been members here for about 2 years. And I remember coming in and going, oh my goodness, we just came from a church that had a building project. So here we go again. And the pastor showed us the picture of the outside. And having come from a traditional denomination, not Baptist, but very traditional, I absolutely loved the way the designer melted the tradition into the more modern. And I remember speaking at a meeting, kind of upset that I didn't see any children, and then I got to know the Sunday school classrooms and the nursery, but I just love the design, and thank you. And one question, that baptistry, will that remain here in the traditional?
Yes, nothing's going to change about this current
That's
building.
wonderful. That's wonderful. As far as faith being important And when we start and trusting our leaders to make the right decision, that's something we did when we agreed to be members. And they have worked so hard. And if we go before the Lord and just give our leaders to Him, I love the fact that we all have had input. That didn't happen at the last church we came from. And how wonderful it is that we can still disagree and love each other.
Amen.
And we have to keep that in forefront.
Amen. One more question. Barb Timmerman, it's coming towards you, honey.
My question is, when this comes to a vote, what percentage makes it pass?
I don't know if it's 70-30 or 80-20. Does anyone know off the top of their head? Pardon?
That wasn't the case the last time, was it?
All right, I'm hearing three different answers to that question because, Barbara, I don't know what the answer is. Pardon?
Well, that's something we need, the congregation needs to know, I would think.
Is it 80-20? 50%? Good point. And what we'll do, as a point of clarification, this Sunday, we're going to vote on this project. It will be by secret ballot. So if you're opposed to us moving forward, you certainly have your option to vote no. But we will make sure that you will know what that percentage is that is required for the vote to pass or not pass.
Jean, would Frank know the answer to this possibly? The question
What percentage
was, what
needs-
percentage does it take for it to pass when we vote?
He's heard 80-20 for the longest time. We'll look at what the Constitution has to say. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me to see if it addresses that particular issue. But we will have a secret ballot vote this Sunday at all three services, and the results of that will be published at the end of the 11 o'clock service. Yes. Hey, Thurman.
My name is Thurman McLam. A lot of you here probably don't even know me because we've got a lot of new members and all, but as Frankie has said earlier, I've been in this church for 73 years as a member. I joined this church before this building was built. I know all of these people that you see their names on these stained glass windows. They were all members here, friends of mine. My family was involved in building this building. And I'm grateful we're going to leave it here and not going to tear it down. I've been really concerned about that. But I want to know, has any thought been given to what the increase is going to be in our annual budget? Right now we got, what is it, about 1.2 is our annual budget. Now how much is it going to increase by adding the cost of the loan that we'll have to make eventually, and also cost involved in the maintenance of a new building, the heat, air, power, insurance, all is going to be increased. So has anybody looked at that
That's a good
increase
question.
in the budget?
Bobby, did the planning committee even broach that subject?
The heat and air conditioning and the plumbing and water and stuff, you're looking at about $3,200 a month.
Heating and plumbing, $3,200 a month more than what we're paying currently.
That I do know.
That he's certain of.
So, all right, so what I'm saying is, have you added all those numbers up together as the amount we'll have to pay on the loan, plus that, the insurance, all that been added up yet to see how much we're going to have to increase our budget? Only reason I'm saying that, folks, I love this church. I've been here all my life, just about. And I just don't want to see us jeopardize our church, because I've been involved in all the construction that's been done on this building. I chaired the plans for the Family Life Center, our worship center, and the classrooms that were built back there. And I know what we went through in getting these these loans paid off. So that we don't want to jeopardize our church, but let's do it right, and just be sure we got the numbers in as they should be. I've
Good point.
been listening to everybody's comments here today, and many of them are very legitimate in what they're having to expressing. But just let's be careful with what we do. That's all I can say.
That's a good point, Thurman. We have done that by hiring Costco to be the expert to give us all of this and the rendering that they've come up with, including a price point that they've locked into so we can move forward with this. Please.
I'm not questioning anybody's comments, but if we were to make a decision, I've built buildings before. If we don't do this, I know we're not starting over, but it changes a lot of things if we don't do this in however many days, right? If we don't do the vote, there's a certain amount of having to rebid, and so we're not starting over, but there are things that go away at the end of if we don't vote to move this.
Because
But I
those that have
think
agreed
that's
to
what
this, those that have agreed to this project may not be available for when we need them. And
but
then
I
we'll have to
think
go to
it's
somebody else.
you have to rebid it.
Well, the permit expires.
Thank you.
And
Explain
there's
that.
several things that we can extend it, most likely, but there's just a process we have to go through. The permit expires, and so we can extend it, most likely. We haven't asked that question yet because we didn't know that we would need to, but we're gonna have to make sure that they will continue, they will extend it. And then, yeah, we're gonna have to go back through the process of rebidding, for sure, and make sure that we get the best pricing we can at that time. But you're right, there's several factors besides just the best prices. Can they man the job when we need them? There are a lot of local bidders that did not bid on the project because they didn't have the time. They're too busy. Many of them said they couldn't get to it for over a year.
I got a question. You know, when I look at everything we're talking about here.
Put it to your mouth, Larry.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
All right. Okay. We have 3 services right now. Some of them are pretty full. And on Easter, we can't hardly get this place. I mean, it's just packed. We've got to do something, and it's not right for the preacher to continue doing 3 services every week. One thing I don't think any of us are thinking about, I think we will increase the number of people going to church, this church,
Amen.
if we have a new facility. There's other facilities, there's other churches around that are doing the same thing. One just right out here on the Robert Edge Parkway. It's filled up every Sunday. You know, and that's something I don't think we put in the equation. When we talked about parking, we have 3 services now. And, you know, the first service uses the parking here, the second service uses the one in the back, the third comes back here. So in reality, we do have a lot of parking. So I don't think that's a big issue, but the biggest issue, I think, is having a church that we can all go to on Sunday and having a preacher that can preach without having to go through so many services every Sunday. And that's just my feeling.
Do you want me to share the cash flow?
Say again?
Do you want me to share the cash flow? We ran the cash flow. What it would actually be, I don't know if you want to mention it or just do it.
How long would that take? 5 minutes? Sharon?
Yes, I don't have a question, but I would like to say something, and again, to reiterate what's already been said numerous times. Thank you all so much for your dedication and putting this together. We all will have differences of opinions. Nobody's going to like everything. And, you know, find some compromise so we're not divided. And the next thing is, are we sitting here trusting ourselves based on what bank books say? Are we going to put our faith in God and trust God to do the work and provide the money? I mean, what are we going to do? That's the bottom line.
Amen. All right. Unless there's more questions or comments, we do need to close tonight. And as I said, there will be a vote on Sunday. It will be secret ballot, and before we even do that, you will know what the percentage is required to make this vote pass or not pass. Or is there any questions? So I know it's important to you, so I would imagine all of you will be here this Sunday to voice your opinion through secret ballot, okay? Thank you for your time, your attention. Pastor, do you have anything? We're just going to close the night. We only have, well, we're well past 7 o'clock, obviously. Mark, are we still having rehearsal, albeit it will be short? Yes. So as Mark reiterated earlier tonight, if you're interested in singing in the Christmas cantata, I've never sung in one before. It's a wonderful time, some great music. Please come tonight. It'll be a shorter rehearsal, but you'll get to hear what we'll be singing this coming Sunday. Let's close in prayer. Heavenly Father, how good it is to be in your presence, and we thank you that we can be in your presence because of what your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, did for us on the cross. And not only did he conquer death, he conquered sin. The perfect, sinless Son of God took our place. And Heavenly Father, you've promised that you will one day come back to take us under your own. But you've also called us, while we're still here, taking in breaths, to go and tell the greatest story ever told. And we, as First Baptist Church of North Myrtle Beach, the lighthouse that sits on one of the highest points here in North Myrtle Beach, has a wonderful opportunity. And Lord, if it be your will, and we truly seek your face so that we are indeed in the center of your will, then we are going to put our faith, because faith without works is dead. We need to trust you and pray that you would provide all that we need, so not only will this be the lighthouse, but it might be a center that would be the pit stop for well beyond as we traverse this globe, taking the gospel to all parts of it, as you said prior to leaving the earth when you ascended from the dead. Be with us as a church, Lord. We love this church. We are committed to this church, to the ministry, to the fellowship, and to the idea of doing our part, not just relying on our pastor, or other leaders in the church, but each of us to roll up our sleeves, to be about your business, to be the hands and feet of Christ. Now, Lord, I ask that you'd be with all of us as we go our separate ways and bring us back together so that we can again worship and lift you up through prayer, through the preached word, and through song. And we'll thank you in advance for all that you're going to do, because it is in your Son's name we ask it. Amen. Good night, church.